One of the most underestimated yet powerful habits to stay young after 50 is something most people take for granted: sleep. Not just any sleep, but deep, consistent, high-quality sleep. The kind that allows your body and brain to go through full cycles of restoration, detoxification, and repair. People often focus on supplements or anti-aging creams, but the true foundation of staying biologically young begins every night when your head hits the pillow, and neuroscience has made it abundantly clear. Sleep is not passive. It's active recovery, it's restoration on a cellular level. During deep sleep, especially slow-wave sleep, your brain enters a state of neural housekeeping. There's a system called the glymphatic system. It works like a sanitation crew for your brain. It clears out metabolic waste, including beta amyloid, which is the protein that accumulates in Alzheimer's disease. This system only kicks in during deep sleep, and only when your brain is in a truly relaxed, non-alert state. So if you're getting fragmented sleep, staying up late on screens, or waking up frequently during the night, your brain isn't getting that deep clean it needs to stay sharp and youthful. What's even more interesting is how sleep influences your hormonal system. Growth hormone, the same hormone that helps build muscle and repair tissue, peaks during deep sleep. This means the more consistent and restorative your sleep is, the more your body is producing growth hormone naturally, even as you age. This hormone doesn't just make you feel better, it literally keeps your skin tighter, your metabolism more efficient, and your immune system stronger. Now, here's where things get really practical. If you're over 50, your sleep architecture changes. Melatonin in secretion drops, sleep becomes lighter, you wake up more easily, but that doesn't mean you're doomed to bad sleep. It just means you have to become more intentional. Consistency is king. Going to bed and waking up at the same time every day, even on weekends, helps anchor your body's circadian rhythm. This internal clock controls everything from hormone release to body temperature to energy levels. One of the best tools to improve sleep quality is light. Getting bright sunlight in your eyes within 30-60 minutes of waking up sets the clock correctly for the day. That early light exposure tells your brain it's daytime and helps shift melatonin in release earlier at night, so you feel naturally sleepy when you should. The opposite is also true. Avoid bright artificial light, especially overhead LED in the evening. Dim the lights. Use warm, low lighting. This cues the body that night has arrived and it's time to wind down. Temperature is another lever. The body sleeps best in a cool environment, around 65 to 67 degrees Fahrenheit. When your core body temperature drops, it signals to the brain that it's time for deep sleep. So lowering the room temperature, taking a warm shower before bed, which paradoxically cools your body afterward, or even using a cooling mattress can support this process. You also want to avoid food and alcohol too close to bedtime. Eating late keeps your digestive system active, which can interfere with deep sleep. Alcohol may help you fall asleep faster, but it disrupts REM and deep sleep cycles. Even small amounts can impair the restorative quality of your sleep. And then there's stress. Cortisol, your stress hormone, can block melatonin, and if it remains elevated in the evening. So you want to implement a wind-down ritual, something that tells your nervous system it's safe to relax. That could be journaling, stretching, reading fiction, or even deep breathing exercises. Just 10 to 15 minutes of this can dramatically shift your state from wired to relaxed. When you consistently get high-quality sleep, you're not just waking up refreshed. You're turning back the biological clock. You're giving your brain a nightly reset. You're fueling neuroplasticity, enhancing memory, stabilizing mood, and reinforcing a youthful hormonal profile. You're stacking the deck in your favor every single night. Sleep is not the reward, it's the requirement. People talk a lot about staying physically active after 50, but what often gets overlooked is the brain, your command center. If you want to stay truly young, sharp, and vibrant, you have to train your brain just like you train your body. The idea that the brain becomes less plastic or less adaptable as we age is only partly true. Neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to rewire itself, is still very much alive even after 50, but here's the catch: it's a use it or lose it system. If you're not challenging your brain regularly, those circuits begin to degrade, not because of age itself, but because of inactivity. Think about what happens when someone retires and stops learning, stops solving new problems, stops being mentally engaged. You can almost watch their energy and alertness fade. The brain thrives on novelty, challenge, and growth. The moment you stop feeding it those ingredients, it begins to shut down certain pathways simply because they're no longer needed. That's not aging, that's neglect. So the goal here is not to just maintain cognitive health, it's to actively build it. Just like you can build muscle at the gym, you can strengthen and grow your neural networks. It doesn't require hours of work each day. What it requires is consistency, focus, and the right kind of challenge. When you push your brain to do something it's not already good at, like learning a new language, trying a musical instrument, memorizing poetry, or even solving a tough puzzle, you activate the release of something called BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor. BDNF is like fertilizer for your brain cells. It encourages the growth of new connections, supports memory, and protects against cognitive decline. But not all brain activity is created equal. Scrolling on your phone, passively consuming content, or watching TV doesn't stimulate plasticity. Your brain needs what's called focused learning, where you're directing your full attention towards something that's just outside your comfort zone. That slight level of discomfort is the trigger. It's what tells your brain, hey, this is important. Let's build more capacity here. Another powerful strategy is deliberate recall. Most people think reading or listening is enough, but it's the act of remembering that actually rewires the brain. So when you learn something new, pause and try to recall it without looking at your notes. That retrieval process strengthens the memory trace. It's the mental equivalent of a muscle contraction. It's what builds brain strength. Sleep, as we talked about earlier, plays a key role here too. During deep sleep, particularly in the early part of the night, the brain consolidates what it learned during the day. That means your mental workouts don't just happen while you're awake. They continue during sleep. But they only consolidate if the learning was effortful and meaningful. Now, what about stress? Chronic stress, especially the kind that goes unmanaged, is like a toxin for your brain. It erodes memory, shrinks the hippocampus, and increases the risk for age-related cognitive diseases. But the good news is that cognitive training, especially when done with a sense of curiosity and joy, can act as a buffer. It builds cognitive reserve, which is your brain's ability to adapt and function well even when under pressure or facing challenges. It's one of the reasons some people stay mentally vibrant into their 80s and beyond. They've spent a lifetime exercising their mind, and that effort builds resilience. Let me give you something actionable. Start with 20 minutes a day. That's it. Choose an activity that demands attention, that frustrates you just enough to be engaging, but not so much that you quit. That space between ease and challenge is where real neuroplastic change happens. Stack this habit after something you already do, maybe after your morning coffee or right after your walk. The key is consistency, not perfection, and remember, your brain doesn't care how old you are. It cares whether you're using it. Keep it learning, keep it stretching. That's how you stay young, not just in memory, but in spirit, energy, and presence. Your brain is still growing, but only if you let it. If there's one habit that determines how youthful you feel, both physically and mentally, it's movement, not just occasional activity, but intentional, daily movement. After 50, it becomes even more essential because the natural tendency is to slow down. Muscle mass starts to decline, bone density begins to weaken, joints feel stiffer, and for many people, that shift creates a dangerous mindset. I'm getting older, so I should rest more. But that's exactly the opposite of what the body needs. Movement is the signal to your biology that you're still in the game. When you stop moving, your brain and body start adapting to that sedentary message, and they adapt fast. Now, here's something fascinating. Movement isn't just for maintaining your body. It actually changes your brain. Every time you walk, lift, stretch, or balance, your brain is working behind the scenes. It's coordinating muscle groups, calculating timing, adjusting posture, and that engagement builds new neural circuits. In fact, some of the most powerful anti-aging effects on the brain come from physical activity. Even moderate movement boosts dopamine, endorphins, and brain-derived neurotrophic factor, all of which support mood, memory, and resilience. The kind of movement matters. For longevity, a combination is ideal. Strength training preserves muscle and prevents the loss of lean tissue, which naturally declines with age. Just 2 sessions a week of resistance-based training can maintain and even increase muscle mass and, more importantly, functional strength. That means being able to carry groceries, get up off the floor, lift your grandkids. These aren't just tasks. They are markers of independence. On the other side, there's cardiovascular movement, especially Zone 2 cardio. This is the kind of steady state activity where you can still hold a conversation, but you're breathing a bit heavier. Walking briskly, cycling, swimming, all excellent. Zone 2 cardio trains your mitochondria, the energy factories inside your cells. As we age, mitochondrial function starts to dip, and that leads to fatigue, slower metabolism, and even cognitive decline. But consistent aerobic movement reverses that process. It literally keeps your cells younger. Then there's mobility, the overlooked third pillar, flexibility, joint rotation, stability. All of that contributes to injury prevention and fluidity of movement. A simple morning routine of 5 to 10 minutes, working through basic mobility drills, can make a massive difference in how you feel throughout the day. What's important is not the complexity of the workout, but the consistency of the habit. Your body thrives on routine. Movement doesn't always need to look like a gym session. Gardening, dancing, walking your dog, climbing stairs, all of it counts if you're intentional and regular. What matters most is sending your body the message that it's still needed, still strong, still adaptable. You don't stop moving because you age because you stop moving. One of the most powerful ways to stay young, physically, mentally, and biologically, is to introduce small amounts of discomfort into your routine through cold and heat exposure. This might sound counterintuitive at first. We've been taught to seek comfort, to stay warm, to avoid stress. But your body doesn't thrive in constant comfort. It evolves, strengthens, and regenerates when it's gently pushed outside its comfort zone. That's where hormesis comes in, a process where exposing the body to short, manageable stressors leads to greater long-term resilience, and 2 of the most effective hormetic tools are cold and heat. Let's start with cold. Cold exposure activates the release of adrenaline, norepinephrine, and dopamine, powerful neuromodulators that increase alertness, elevate mood, and sharpen focus. But there's more going on under the surface. When you expose your body to cold water, even for just a few minutes, it activates brown fat, which is metabolically active tissue that helps burn calories and regulate blood sugar. It also trains your cardiovascular system. Your blood vessels learn to constrict and dilate more effectively, which improves circulation and heart function over time. For those over 50, this kind of vascular training is incredibly important, because it helps offset the natural stiffening of arteries that comes with age. Cold exposure also reduces inflammation, improves immune function, and boosts mitochondrial health. And mitochondria, those little energy generators in your cells, are central to aging. Healthier mitochondria mean more energy, better metabolism, and greater overall vitality. But here's the key. The exposure has to be brief and controlled. 1 to 5 minutes in cold water, or even a cold shower, a few times a week is enough to produce benefits. The goal isn't to suffer, It's to stimulate adaptation. Now let's talk about heat. Heat exposure, like using a sauna or taking a hot bath, can seem like the opposite of cold therapy, but the benefits are equally compelling. When you sit in a sauna, your body initiates a cascade of biological responses. Heart rate increases, blood vessels dilate, and the body begins to sweat. This mimics cardiovascular exercise in many ways. Studies show that regular sauna use improves heart health, reduces the risk of dementia, and lowers inflammation markers across the board. Heat stress also activates heat shock proteins, molecules that repair damaged proteins and protect cells from aging, related breakdown. This is a direct anti-aging mechanism. Just like with cold, the exposure needs to be brief but regular. Around 15 to 20 minutes in a sauna, 2 to 3 times a week, is enough to trigger these protective effects. When you alternate between cold and heat exposure, you're giving your body a powerful training signal. It's like a reset button for your nervous system. It builds stress tolerance, improves recovery, and strengthens cellular resilience. Over time, this consistent discomfort leads to greater ease. You feel more calm, more capable, and more energized throughout your day. The body was designed to adapt, but only when challenged. One of the most underrated habits that directly influences how youthful you stay after 50 is how you eat. Not just what you eat, but when. Your body isn't built for constant feeding. From a neurological and metabolic standpoint, eating across a long window each day sends the message that energy is always available, so there's no need to optimize, repair, or conserve. But when you limit your eating to a specific window of time, what we call time-restricted eating or intermittent fasting, you flip that message. You trigger a biological mode that prioritizes efficiency, cellular repair, and longevity. When you fast, something remarkable happens inside your cells. They begin to clean themselves. This process is called autophagy. Think of it as your body's internal recycling system. Damaged proteins, broken organelles, and metabolic waste are identified and cleared out. This is a key mechanism in slowing down the aging process, and it only gets activated when insulin levels drop low enough, which doesn't happen if you're constantly snacking or grazing throughout the day. Even more compelling is the way time-restricted eating improves insulin sensitivity, balances hormones, and enhances brain clarity. Growth hormone, for instance, increases during periods of fasting. That's the same hormone responsible for tissue repair, muscle growth, and overall rejuvenation. And on a neurological level, fasting boosts the production of brain-derived neurotrophic factor, or BDNF, the molecule that supports learning, memory, and neuroplasticity. That's why people often report increased mental sharpness when they compress their eating window. Now, the approach doesn't have to be extreme. For most people over 50, even a simple 14, 10 or 16, 8 schedule, meaning 14 to 16 hours of fasting and an 8 to 10 hour eating window, is enough to see real benefits. For example, you might delay your first meal until around 10 a.m. and finish eating by 6 or 7 p.m. That gives your body time to digest, stabilize blood sugar, and enter a true repair state overnight. Equally important is avoiding food late at night. Eating close to bedtime interferes with sleep quality, digestion, and cellular restoration. And alcohol, despite its relaxing effect, actually blocks the benefits of fasting and deep sleep recovery. If you want your body to regenerate and your brain to stay young, giving your system a break from constant digestion is a powerful signal. Your body doesn't just need fuel, it needs time to renew. As we look at all the biological and neurological tools to stay young after 50, there's one that often gets overlooked, not because it's unimportant, but because it doesn't come in a pill, a protocol, or a lab test. Its purpose, its connection, it's the deep relationships and meaningful goals that keep your brain and body vibrant for decades. From a neuroscience perspective, Feeling connected and having a sense of purpose isn't just emotionally rewarding, it's biologically essential. When you're engaged in meaningful relationships, whether it's with family, friends, or a community, you activate the release of oxytocin. This chemical doesn't just make you feel bonded, it lowers cortisol, reduces inflammation, and promotes feelings of safety. That sense of safety has a physiological effect. It lowers your heart rate, supports immune function, and improves sleep. These are the same systems that are deeply involved in aging, so the quality of your relationships directly impacts your biology. Purpose works in a similar way. When you wake up with something to work toward, something that matters to you, it organizes your brain, it aligns your dopamine system, and when dopamine is properly regulated, you feel more motivated, more focused, and more capable. That kind of mental engagement not only prevents depression and anxiety, it also supports longevity on a cellular level. People with strong life purpose scores live longer, have lower rates of stroke and Alzheimer's, and experience slower cognitive decline, even when other risk factors are present. And it doesn't have to be grand. Purpose can be found in mentoring someone, helping your children, volunteering, starting a creative project, or building a habit that inspires others. It's about knowing that your actions have meaning beyond the moment. That belief activates a part of the brain called the prefrontal cortex, which governs self, control, planning, and long-term decision-making, all key components in healthy aging. Social isolation, on the other hand, is one of the most dangerous conditions for the aging brain. It increases the risk of cognitive decline, heart disease, and even mortality. The fix isn't just to be around people, it's to connect, to be fully present, to listen, to laugh, to share space with people who energize you and remind you of who you are beyond your physical body. Staying young isn't just about cells and circuits, it's about connection, meaning, and the energy that comes from knowing you matter. So when we talk about staying young after 50, we're not chasing a number, we're building a system. A system that supports vitality, sharpness, and energy from the inside out. It's not about shortcuts or hacks. It's about aligning with what your biology and brain have been designed for all along. Deep sleep, mental challenge, daily movement, intentional stress through cold and heat, strategic fasting, and a life anchored in purpose and connection. These 6 golden habits are not trends, they're timeless, they're backed by science, and more importantly, they're within your control. No matter your age, your past, or your current condition, you can begin shaping a younger future, starting today. The body follows the mind, and the mind follows what you do consistently. Choose the habits that serve you, and the rest will follow.